Part 25. The Hidden Manna. 1. We live in a fathomless sea of plastic mind substance. This substance is ever alive and active. It is sensitive to the highest degree. It takes form according to mental demand. Thought forms the mold or matrix from which the substance expresses. Our ideal is the mold from which our future will emerge. 2. The universe is alive. In order to express life, there must be mind. Nothing can exist without mind. Everything that exists is some manifestation of this one basic substance, from which and by which all things have been created and are continually being recreated. It is man's capacity to think that makes him a creator instead of a creature. 3. All things are the result of the thought process. Man has accomplished the seemingly impossible because he has refused to consider it impossible. By concentration, men have made the connection between the finite and the infinite, the limited and the unlimited, the visible and the invisible, the personal and the impersonal. 4. The building up of matter from electrons has been an involuntary process of individualizing intelligent energy. 5. Men have learned a way to cross the ocean on floating palaces, how to fly in the air, how to transmit thought around the world on sensitized wires, how to cushion the earth with rubber, and thousands of other things just as remarkable, just as startling, and just as incomprehensible to the people of a generation ago. 6. Men will yet turn to the study of life itself, and with the knowledge thus gained will come peace and joy and length of days. 7. The search for the elixir of life has always been a fascinating study, and has taken hold of many minds of utopian mold. In all times, philosophers have dreamed of the day when man will become the master of matter. Old manuscripts contain many, many receipts that have cost their inventors bitter pangs of baffled disillusionment. Thousands of investigators have laid their contributions upon the sacrificial altar for the benefit of mankind. 8. But not through quarantine or disinfectants or boards of health will man reach the long-sought plane of physical well-being, nor by dieting or fasting or suggesting will the elixir of life and the philosopher's stone be found. 9. The mercury of the sages and the hidden manna are not constituents of health foods. 10. When man's mind is made perfect, then and then only will the body be able perfectly to express itself. 11. The physical body is maintained through a process of continuous destruction and reconstruction. 12. Health is but the equilibrium that nature maintains through the process of creating new tissue and eliminating the old or waste tissue. 13. Hate, envy, criticism, jealousy, competition, selfishness, war, suicide, and murder are the causes that produce acid conditions in the blood, causing changes that result in irritation of the brain cells, the keys upon which soul plays divine harmonies or fantastic tricks before high heaven according to the arrangement of chemical molecules in the wondrous laboratory of nature. 14. Birth and death are constantly taking place in the body. New cells are being created by the process of converting food, water, and air into living tissue. 15. Every action of the brain and every movement of the muscle means destruction and consequent death of some of these cells, and the accumulation of these dead, unused, and waste cells is what causes pain, suffering, and disease. 16. We allow such destructive thoughts as fear, anger, worry, hatred, and jealousy to take possession, and these thoughts influence the various functional activities of the body, the brain, the nerves, the heart, the liver, or the kidneys. They in turn refuse to perform their various functions. The constructive processes cease and the destructive processes begin. 17. Food, water, and air are the three essential elements necessary to sustain life, but there is something still more essential. Every time we breathe, we not only fill our lungs with air, but we fill ourselves with pranic energy, the breath of life replete with every requirement for mind and spirit. 18. This life-giving spirit is far more necessary than air, food, or water. A man can live for 40 days without food, for 3 days without water, and for a few minutes without air, but he cannot live a single second without ether. It is the one prime essential of life, so that the process of breathing furnishes not only food for bodybuilding, but food for mind and spirit as well. 19. It is a well-known fact in India, but not so well-known in this country, that in normal rhythmical breathing, exhalation and inhalation takes place through one nostril at a time, for about 1 hour through the right nostril and then for a like period through the left nostril. 20. The breath entering through the right nostril creates positive electromagnetic currents, which pass down the right side of the spine, while the breath entering through the left nostril sends electromagnetic currents down the left side of the spine. These currents are transmitted by way of the nerve centers or ganglia of the sympathetic nervous system to all parts of the body. 21. In the normal rhythmical breath, exhalation takes about twice the time of inhalation. For instance, if inhalation requires 4 seconds, exhalation, including a slight natural pause before the new inhalation, requires 8 seconds. 22. The balancing of the electromagnetic energies in the system depend to a large extent upon this rhythmical breathing, hence the importance of deep, unobstructed and rhythmic exhalation and inhalation. 23. The wise men of India knew that with the breath, they absorbed not only the physical elements of the air, but life itself. They taught that this primary force of all forces, from which all energy is derived, ebbs and flows in rhythmical vibration through the created universe. Every living thing is alive by the virtue of partaking of this cosmic breath. 24. The more positive the demand, the greater the supply. Therefore, while breathing deeply and rhythmically in harmony with the universal breath, we contact the life force from the source of all life in the innermost parts of our being. Without this intimate connection of the individual soul with the great reservoir of life, existence as we know it would be an impossibility. 25. Freedom does not consist in the disregard of a governing principle, but in conformity to it. The laws of nature are infinitely just. A violation of just law is not an act of freedom. The laws of nature are infinitely beneficent. Exception from the operation of a beneficent law is not freedom. Freedom consists in conscious harmonious relation with the laws of being. Thus only may desire be satisfied, harmony attained and happiness secured. 26. The mighty river is free only while it is confined within its banks. The banks enable it to perform its appointed function, and to answer its beneficent purpose to the best advantage. While it is under the restraint of freedom, it gives out its message of harmony and prosperity. If its bed is raised or its volume greatly increased, it leaves its channel and spreads over the country, carrying a message of ruin and desolation. It is no longer free. It has ceased to be a river. 27. Necessities are demands, and demands create action which result in growth. This process makes for each decade a larger growth. So it is truly said that the last 25 years have advanced the world more than any previous century, and the last century has advanced the world more than all the ages of the past. 28. Notwithstanding all of the different characters, dispositions, and idiosyncrasies of different people, there is a certain definite law which dominates and governs all existence. 29. Thought is mind in motion, and psychic gravity is to the law of the mind what atomic attraction is to physical science. Mind has its chemistry and constituent powers, and these powers are as definite as those of any physical potency. 30. Creation is the power of mind, by which the thought is turned inward and made to impregnate and conceive new thought. It is for this reason that only the enlightened mind can think for itself. 31. The mind must acquire a certain character of thought, which will enable it to reproduce them itself, without any seed from without to impregnate it. 32. When mind has acquired this nature, it is able to spontaneously generate thoughts without outside stimulation. 33. This is done by conceiving thought in the mind, as a result of being impregnated and fecundated by the universal. 34. They must not be permitted to go out into space, but on the contrary must remain within, where they will create psychic states corresponding to their natures. 35. It is this absorption of self-generated thoughts and their conception of corresponding psychic states that is the principle of causation. 36. This is possible owing to the fact that the mental cosmos is perpetually radiated as a unity of mind, and this mind functions in connection with the soul of man as his mind. 37. It being essence, it is identified with the essence of the cosmos, and with the essence of all things. 38. The result is that having attained unto and having become an infinity of thought, the individual is omniscient in mind, omnipotent in will, and omnipresent in soul. The quality of his mind is omniscience, and the quality of his soul is omnipresence. 39. Such a man is possessed with real power in all that he does. He is indeed a master, the creator of his own destiny, the arbiter of his own fate. 40. There are many flowers of vari-colored blossoms. Each blossom's stem simply reaches up to the great sun, the god of vegetable life manifestation, without complaining, without doubt, and in all the fullness of plant desire, faith, and expectancy. 41. They demand and attract the richness of color and perfume. And so man will too in the future unshackle the great desire forces of mind and soul and turn them to heaven in righteous demand for the highest gift in the universe, life. 42. And life means to live. Age is a prejudice which has become so firmly anchored in your mind that any casual number of years mentioned evokes a precise image on your brain. 43. 20 years you see a youth or a young girl adorned with all of the juvenile graces. 44. 30 years a young man or young woman in the full development of vital strength and equilibrium, still on the upgrade towards the dazzling heights of maturity. 45. 40 years the summit has been reached, the effort made having been maintained by the prospect of the vast horizons to be dominated. 46. The road traversed is contemplated with pride, but with emotion you already turn towards the abyss whose dizzy curves wind steeply into ever-increasing darkness. 47. 50 years halfway down the slope, which is still illumined by the light from the peaks though already touched by the chill of the abyss. An organism weakened and compelled to submit to numerous abdications. 48. 60 years brings you to the entrance of the cold melancholy valleys. Resigned to inexorable destiny, you stand on the threshold of old age. You begin preparations for the long journey that must inevitably be undertaken. 49. 70 years wrinkled and old, endowed with numerous infirmities, you sit in the waiting room for the last journey, considering it miraculous that you are still alive. 50. If the 80th year is exceeded, the fact is mentioned as an amazing phenomenon and you are treated with the respect due to antiquities. 51. Is this parallel correct? Is there any connection between age and age value? Let it be emphatically stated that the tyranny of the birth certificate can be abolished. 52. The fact that a year represents one complete revolution of the earth round the sun has nothing in common with the evolution of the human being. 53. To be so many years old means simply that the circling seasons have been observed so many times and nothing more. It implies no consideration of the intellectual or physical state. The person who has seen the untiring astronomical phenomenon 40 times may be much younger in the real meaning of the word than one who has seen it but 30 times. 54. The vibratory activities of the planetary universe are governed by a law of periodicity. Everything that lives has periods of birth, growth, and fruitage. These periods are governed by the septimal law. 55. The law of sevens governs the days of the week, the phases of the moon, the harmonies of sound, light, heat, electricity, magnetism, atomic structure. It governs the life of individuals and of nations, and it dominates the activities of the commercial world. We can apply the same law to our own lives, and therefore come into an understanding of many experiences which would otherwise appear inexplicable. 56. Life is growth and growth is change. Each 7-year period takes us into a new cycle. 57. The first 7 years is the period of infancy. The next 7, the period of childhood, representing the beginning of individual responsibility. The next 7 represents the period of adolescence. The 4th period marks the attainment of full growth. The 5th period is the constructive period, when men acquire property, possessions, a home and family. The next, from 35 to 42, is a period of reactions and changes, and this in turn is followed by a period of reconstruction, adjustment and recuperation, so as to be ready for a new cycle of 7s beginning with the 50th year. 58. The law of periodicity governs cycles of every description. There are cycles of short periods and cycles of long periods. There are periods when the emotions gain the ascendancy and the whole world is absorbed in religious thought, and there are other periods when science and learning take the ascendancy and the patent office is flooded with new inventions. There are other periods when vice and crime rule with a high hand, periods of strikes and hard times, times of turmoil, confusion and disaster, and there are periods of reform. 59. What is the cause of these cycles? Are they arbitrary? Have they no basis or foundation in nature, recurring with almost the regularity of clockwork and without any incentive whatever? Or are they perhaps due to universal laws and caused by the revolution of the planets in their orbits, having their origin in some principle in nature which man may learn, and thus ultimately be able to predict with certainty the recurrence of the same phenomena? 60. Let us consider the division of the zodiac into 4 grand quarters resembling spring, summer, autumn and winter. The spring quarter corresponds to infancy, childhood and youth, the irresponsible and educational period from the 1st to the 21st year of life, when the personal is being fitted by service and study for the next important stage. It is the time when fidelity and filial reverence, obedience and industry are instilled into the growing mind. 61. The summer quarter of life from 21 to 42 is the practical period of life, and is concerned with the life of the householder, in which wealth becomes an object, responsibility grows and the duties of life become heavier and filled with business activity. It is the period when the social side of the personality is expressed, and the lesson of unselfishness is learned. Prosperity comes with the fullness of life which abounds in the summer portion. The virtues developed are caution, thrift, charity, magnanimity, diligence and prudence. 62. This period of life is governed by the sign Leo, in which the life forces burn at their greatest heat, and love for partner and offspring finds its greatest height in the domestic and social world. 63. The autumn quarter of life is one in which the glory of manhood and the fullness of motherhood are turned to wider interest, and personal claims are sacrificed for the benefit of those outside the narrow circle of the home. The duties of government and the national welfare are taken up with motives that are less limited and more altruistic in their nature, the desire being to help in the ruling and guiding of those who belong to the nation. The virtues to be acquired are equilibrium, justice, strength, courage, vigor, and generosity. 64. The concentralizing power of this period is denoted by the sign Scorpio, symbol of self, controlled emotions, fixed feelings, and permanent modes of action, the fluidity and changeable sensations of the watery signs being made stable and reliable and fixed. 65. The next stage of life is the period in which experience is garnered, and the lessons of life are stored ready for the enriching of the ego. It is the stage in which the review of life brings wisdom and the tender feelings of sympathy to all. The virtues of the last 3 signs are made manifest as patience, self-sacrifice, service, purity, wisdom, gentleness, and compassion. 66. The centralizing of the mind in the sign Aquarius brings the climax when the man is complete, and the humanized perfection of manhood culminates in the one whose mind is wholly centered in higher states of consciousness. 67. This is the plan of the normal evolution of humanity, when the civilized nations have worked through their infantile spring-like stage. For nations, like individuals, are also evolving, and it is the national good and the national perfection that is to be the outcome of this wisely ordained plan, in accordance with the will of the supreme ruler of the universe. 68. Perhaps it was this national good and national perfection which one of our great men saw, when he had the wonderful vision which he so beautifully described. 69. A vision of the future arises. I see a world where thrones have crumbled and where kings are dust. The aristocracy of idleness has perished from the earth. 70. I see a world without a slave. Man at last is free. Nature's forces have by science been enslaved. Lightning and light, wind and waves, frost and flames, and all the subtle powers of the earth and air are tireless toilers for the human race. 71. I see a world at peace adorned with every form of art, with music's myriad voices thrilled, while lips are rich with words of love and truth, a world in which no exile sighs, no prisoner mourns, a world on which the gibbet's shadow does not fall, a world where labor reaps its full reward, where work and worth go hand in hand. 72. I see a world without the beggar's outstretched palm, the miser's heartless stony stare, the piteous wail of want, the livid lips of lies, the cruel eyes of scorn. 73. I see a race without disease of flesh or brain, shapely and fair, married harmony of form and function, and as I look, life lengthens, joy deepens, love canopies the earth, and over all in the great dome shines the eternal star of faith. 4. A poem. With every strong thought, with every earnest longing, for aught thou deemest needful to thy soul, invisible vast forces are set thronging between thee and that goal. 'Tis only when some hidden weakness alters and changes thy desire or makes it less, that this mysterious army ever falters or stops short of success. Thought is a magnet, and the longed for pleasure, or boon or aim or object is the steel, and its attainment hangs but on the measure of what thy soul can feel. Author unknown.